it took a long time and me getting caught with the cold, but we're finally doing Brandon's long-awaited streaming movie episode of the Screen Love Affair podcast. And I
Bro,
cheated because one of these I got to see in a theater. So
that's so unfair, dude. I didn't want to waste it on good movies that should be in a theater. I wanted to waste it on garbage movies. Speaking of which, to derail immediately, if this episode gets 5 likes, we have to discuss Merry Little Xmas. It's the it's not Hallmark. It's a Netflix original movie, Christmas movie. It's the one I almost died on at the birth of this podcast. I almost fell out of a giant lift at a barn hanging Christmas lights for, again, a Netflix original streaming movie for Christmas about an ex-girlfriend during the holidays, like Xmas EX. So I really want to review that just so I can talk about how fun it was working on. I'm wearing the IATSE shirt as I'm saying this. Wasn't planned. Yeah, I work in movies and I almost died on a movie, and it happens to be a Netflix streaming Christmas movie. So the real streaming episode I really want to do is that one. However, we're
if
talking
you
about two
died on a
significantly better movies.
Netflix original Christmas movie, I would call that out at your funeral and I would
Oh, you
bang
would?
on that so bad. Like, I'd get up there and like, we're gathered here today because Brandon died creating Netflix slop. He died for nothing, and I would make a huge ordeal about it.
Yeah,
Let me
you'd be
kick
like
off
tears
this
in your eyes.
episode. Yeah. Let me kick
He
off
died
this
for nothing.
episode by saying how much I hate Netflix. I still hate them. I canceled my subscription almost 2 years ago now, and I have not looked back. And I will not disclose how I got to watch Train Dreams.
I was about to ask.
But
Yar.
I absolutely hate them so much. I saw Knives Out. Well, it's Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. They have different names for the other ones now, but um, the theater was absolutely packed. I don't know what yours was like, but it was
Yes.
packed. And it was the same way when I saw Glass Onion. And I remember watching the first Knives Out at the theater in Owen Sound. And it was it was notable because it was one of the best original new theatrical releases in a long time when the first Knives Out came out. And then Netflix acquired them, and my heart broke. And I remember last year, or when Glass Onion came out, they had limited it to like it wasn't even like a full calendar week in theaters. And even then it was in like less theaters than normal. So, which sucks, especially because these movies are such great um crowd movies. But
Totally.
before we get into Knives Out, I want to talk about Train Dreams, because this was a movie that got even less of a theatrical release. The only thing that was showing it was called like public cinema here in Montreal, and it had French subtitles. And I hate subtitles when I don't need subtitles. So the movie's in English, so I would have like it would have drove me nuts. So I ended up watching it at home
On
and
streaming.
on a at home. I won't say more than that. I watched it at home.
For the viewers at
And
home, that's either Shea trying to avoid saying something about acquiring a movie the way you wouldn't steal a car, or he is so abhorrently against Netflix streaming that he could never physically say the words "I streamed it," which I
let me
love
just
for the
say,
ambiguity. Yar, the
yeah,
Bay of
exactly.
Pirates. Um,
Um, but so of course, not an admission of guilt. Um, but I watched it at home, and Brandon, when we talked about Hamnet last week, you had said about this is the kind of movie that like if you watch it at home, like you might not get the buy-in. And I agree with all that. And I had heard a lot of good things about Train Dreams, so I really wanted to set myself up as best I could to enjoy the movie and not get distracted and wander and look at my phone. And I waited until I had the house to myself. I made it as dark as I could, set everything up. The dog was sleeping, and I watched this whole movie. And Ashley came back home just before the end, and she knew I was dialed in. I told her I didn't want to be distracted from this movie. And for anyone that's been to my house, my TV is right next to the front door. So she came in quietly, saw what I was doing, made sure I was like as undisturbed as possible, went straight to our room. And right after that, probably 2 minutes later, I started bawling at the ending of this. Not like, "Ah," but like I was man tearing hardcore. And she came out a little bit after, and I was just sitting through the credits, and I was blown away by how moved I was by this movie. Um, it is one back to for me, like, this was another 5 I've given it. I absolutely love this
Wow.
whole thing. I, from start to finish, um, and I am devastated that I couldn't see this in a theater, and I hope if this does get more of an awards push, that they will maybe consider putting it in more theaters, um, because I think that would just make the buy-in so much more. Um, from the start, this movie was, like, beautiful, haunting, and the lead performance was phenomenal, and the ending, I just felt like when we talked about Hamnet last week, how there was these flat lines and spikes and flat lines and spikes. I just felt this movie pretty much from the moment it started, I just started gradually going like this, and I talked about, how much I love a good ending, and this movie absolutely, like, there was 2 moments again, which we'll get into in the spoiler part, but just broke me down, and this is one of the most beautiful endings I've seen in a long time. I technically had seen it before I had saw Hamnet, um and I'd say for all of the things we griped about, arguably, I liked the ending of this one a bit more, just because of the impact it had on me completely. Um, but I know you, not to call you out before you get to share your own thoughts, but you had watched like half of the movie and then did a whole bunch of shit for the day, came back to watch it just before we recorded. And that's exactly why streaming, case in point, is terrible, and I hate it.
So to hop in on that, again, to say this twice in the first 5 minutes here, for the viewers at home, Shea is not emotionally charged or speechless from how good the movie is. He's just losing his voice because he's very physically ill, super sick, as the kids say. So, he did love the movie, and it's tough again. And I do think what we talked about both in our last review with Hamnet, were mentioning like, you're like, oh, you got to see it, recommend it. And I was like, I could not in good conscience recommend this to a streamer. I think the Hamnet movie, outside the context of a perfect audience and theater experience, will drag people to dislike it and actively turn it off because it does lull so much. This movie, however, it doesn't lull as much. It's definitely a consistent build, and it's really well paced. It's really well shot. Like, every shot had some intentionality to it, some unique angles. The timing and the pacing, like a lot of my video cinematographer friends, people that shoot a lot of content and stuff like that, they always talk about how moving the camera is kind of cheating. If you have good composition, good lighting, good performances, locking the camera off and letting things play out is like the real master of craft. Like, if every shot's a Michael Bay axis parallax shifting thing, which to gaslight myself, all my wedding videos are that. It's a lot of gimbal movement, a lot of tracking dolly shots, slow mo, great music. It's very like Hollywood-esque. But yeah, this movie is like phenomenally well shot. That's probably the biggest compliment takeaway I have to start off the episode spoiler free. Um, but as to address Shay's criticism, I finished the movie about like 20 minutes before recording the episode because I started it last night, and like a streaming movie, it hooked me pretty quick. There's a lot worse out there as far as like streaming goes. Uh, seeing 3 movies in theaters this week while in the process of moving, while working 60 hours a week on film sets and IATSE, just haven't found the time. Also, and I wanted to say this at the very start, bold move of Netflix, eh? They put out Train Dreams, they put out Wake Up Dead Man, Knives Out 3, Knives Out 3 / Wake Up Dead Man, same day on Wednesday that they drop Stranger Things, the long awaited darling streaming show of Netflix. It was, as you said, a packed theater, same for me. but what a weird statement of releasing this $150 million Rian Johnson amazing cinema experience. And there's nothing more segregating in the current theater versus streaming discussion than on the Wednesday release of Stranger Things, something that like 90% of people are hyped and waiting to watch. Are you staying in to watch the long-awaited Stranger Things episode drop, or are you going to a packed Cineplex on a Wednesday? Like, there was no parking at a very big Cineplex in my side of Toronto. So yeah, but talking about Train Dreams, we'll come back to Wake Up Dead Man, which I'm really excited for. Wake Up Dead Man was the last thing I saw on the roster of 3 or 4 movies this week. I could appreciate it. I liked it, but I think similar to the Hamnet discussion, by not having a locked-in theater experience where I had no other option to just let the atmosphere wash over me, let the characters breathe and sit with me, I just didn't really buy in. Like, I didn't really find like this very big moving feeling. And I 100% am aware, like, when Shea was telling the story about his girlfriend walking in near the end and being very quiet and respectful, I believe if she had dropped a pin on the floor, Shea would have paused the movie and been like, shut up, because he maintains his theatrical experience at home. Shea's living situation is such that he can play like the speaker volume of his amazing home audio and theater setup to the max. As a renting tenant, I am blown away. Every time I go, I look around waiting for a neighbor to knock on the walls or something. Because if he was in Toronto paying 3 times the rent, he would have 3 times the neighbor complaints. So Shea's at-home setup is peak, and he creates and invites the atmosphere for an at-home movie. I almost enjoyed watching Top Gun Maverick with you in your home setup better than the theater that I saw it in. Granted, it was a small theater at the end of like June or July. No, it was like October, and it came out
We
in
were
June or
into
July.
September, yeah.
Yeah, and then I rewatched it with you because we loved it, and then I was like in your home setup with your audio, and Shay's a former tech blogger guy, dealing with only the reviews of like the highest end home theater equipment. So I expect nothing less of Shay. But unlike Shay, I just didn't have it. It's a weekend where I'm moving, so like as I'm sitting there watching this movie, I see a mound of boxes in my living room, and I'm like, I should really unpack those while this is playing in the background. I didn't, because I respect the integrity of the podcast. But ultimately, to stop whining about my life, I did enjoy the movie, but I at home, and this is a me thing for sure. When I'm at home, my time is so limited and so spread thin that it is hard for me to sit still, and not like in like an ADHD, got pull up my phone type way, but just the way of like, it's really hard when you're in your environment. The theatrical religious experience of entering a sanctum, having the smell of fresh popcorn and a large Diet Coke and sitting in silence and watching a movie is how I reset my mental health. It's how I connect to a movie and feel the escapism that movies give me. And Train Dreams was a great movie. Don't get me wrong. I was more excited for Train Dreams than I was Hamnet, which I got a lot out of. Uh, but the pivot and the difference is that with Hamnet, I had to be locked in and was able to sit there and enjoy it. Or doing this at home, like Shay talks about, like somebody's on their phone 2 rows behind him and he knows, and it ruins the experience. Watching Train Dreams, some lady was cooking chicken, watching TikTok recipe videos, and that was my girlfriend because we're in our apartment. So ultimately, I would say whatever criticisms or whatever lack of like cinematic bliss that Shay found and that I do not share doesn't come down to the movie itself. It definitely hinges significantly on the fact that it was a streaming movie. And unfortunately, I would say I liked it. I would definitely give it a like on our Lycometer. I think it's a technically excellent movie. And I found my way in, which I'll get into, but ultimately I just, the format of it did not allow me to love it. And comparatively to like, say, Wake Up Dead Man, Knives Out 3, I just like, that was an experience that hit home for me a lot. Not to tangentially go on too hard here, but yeah, the reverence I have for the Knives Out franchise is so strong, and seeing all of them in theaters despite the Netflix limited release makes those movies so phenomenal and perfect for the theater going audience. But then seeing something that's more of an artsy movie with a streaming lens, especially in a very like golden era of streaming. Like, again, I work in film and TV in Toronto, which is all streaming properties. It is my whole income, my whole livelihood is based around making streaming stuff. But I would admit, when you're going for like a pure cinematic experience, watching something at home on your TV, even with a setup that you deem good, is still going to not allow you to resonate and connect and be with the characters of a movie. That is why it's a religious experience to go and sit in a Cineplex, to go either alone or with your friends. It's just, sitting still at home, with my girlfriend, with my best friends, it's just a different atmosphere. So, I'm almost trying to say, like, I like the movie, I just didn't love it, and I don't think it's the fault of the movie. Yeah, if we're talking about Train Dreams, I definitely want to hear in depth what you thought. I wish I could watch this at home with your setup, the far superior one. Yeah, I feel like I've rambled on enough about it,
No,
but
no, I think for me, it was like, yes, I know and I recognize how lucky I am where I can basically, luckily they were, I think, both away, doing other things. But I know Ty and Ashley both. Ashley probably would have watched it with me, but I didn't want to watch this with her, frankly. It was not her specific. I really wanted, from based on what I had heard, I really wanted to just lock in on this kind of on my own at home and not be distracted by anything else. But I really like, I am encouraged to hear that you could see the difference. Like, I know I give you a lot of shit when you're like, yeah, get the family together and watch this one on streaming when it comes out, and how like that as a concept I just hate, because
you just want to
I
punch me in the teeth
contend
every time I
I
say it.
can
You're like, shut up, get
exactly.
off
You're
my
so
podcast.
lucky that this is remote most of the time. But I think that I think that for me, like, every movie is elevated from being experienced in a theater. And Train Dreams, I know, like, I was that moved. I know it would have been more if I could have seen it in a theater. And for me, jumping into the bit more of the spoiler parts, because I won't get bogged down in this too much. Please, if you do have the chance to see it, give this one a watch. Um, and really try to set yourself up. Like I said, if I watch anything new, whether that's an old movie that I meant to see ages ago that I never did, or it's a new release that didn't get a theatrical release or something like that, I tried it my best to recreate the experience at home. And that is putting my phone away, that is not doing it while someone's cooking fucking chicken in the kitchen, Brandon. Um, it's about setting up the time, giving yourself the space. And I know people have busy lives and that's not always possible, but you owe it to yourself, if you're going to commit to something, to try and experience it in the best way possible that you can. And it helps if you have a good TV, it helps if you have a good sound, but really you just need the commitment. And I think the ability to kind of unplug from the world for 2 hours and sit down and watch. But to dig into the spoilers on this one, I won't go too much into the details. I thought the performances overall were phenomenal. I really loved William H. Macy. He was like as the old guy in this one. And
He's always
if
usually like a henchman and stuff. Like he was in, I feel like he's in so much, and he's often like a side character. Like he's always like some sort of like CIA's friend.
yeah,
He's rarely a leading man. So I was skeptical at first, being like, can he carry the movie? And it's his
I
movie. Like
think you're
it's
mixing up my guys. William H. Macy is the old guy, the
oh
one
sorry,
that the tree falls on in his head. You're
he was my
thinking
favorite
of Joel
part.
Edgerton.
Joel
Yes, Joel
Edgerton's always
Edgerton
a
is the main
henchman.
guy. Yeah,
William
yeah,
H
yeah.
Macy's great. Yeah, yeah.
William H. Macy, ironically, I first saw in the movie Wild Hogs, which is not a great movie, but one that I saw when I was a perfect age to think it was hilarious. Um,
Dude, when you
but
say that, you mean you saw Wild Hogs about 15 times in a window of 2 years?
Well, I would have watched
Because,
a ton back then, dude. Like,
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
I could probably right now, beat for beat, tell you that whole movie.
it was like, are your parents home? Yes. Wild Hogs. Are they not home? Tropic Thunder for the 14th time. Yes. Like
Yeah,
that was the era, like a great
yeah,
age for those movies.
absolutely. But he has a guest spot in it. Um, Guest spot like it's TV, but he was in it very quickly. Um, but I saw this bit where it's like, where's the performance where this is matched, and it's like screen time and it's nothing, but its impact is super high. And I
Oh,
think that's
I know.
definitely true for his role in this movie.
To match what you just said, like minimal screen time, massive splash in the runtime of the movie. It's Jesse Plemons in Civil War. The whole trailer puts him in there, and then that scene comes up, and he's the best part of the movie. But it's literally a cameo because he's Kirsten Dunst's
Yeah.
husband. It's like
Yeah.
one of the best scenes of the movie, and he's in it for like yeah, 4 minutes, and you're like,
Yeah,
damn. And
if that.
similar here, it's like when he shows up and he's saying the thing by the bonfire, being like, it's hard work for the body, but it's even worse work for the soul when you're cutting down trees that are 500 years old. I was like, oh, dude, I wanted more of that. And then, are we in the spoiler half yet?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I would say, yeah, like I love that character. I loved all the relationships and like the world building and the way they flavor the variety of lifestyle our main character lives. Um, I bought in really heavy. Like, and it's funny, like the bit for me wearing my IATSE t-shirt is that I feel like I bought in with that when he's like, I work on this kind of remote thing. I'm surrounded by men who are kind of transient. They don't have a home. They live to work. They chase the money. They follow the job. Um, and they talk about that scene where he's like, it always feels weird when the work ends. When the work ends, from finishing your job or whatever, and there's like that period between jobs that's when you got to sit with yourself and the life you've made for yourself. And like this is really corny and dramatic, but that is what it feels like to be a film technician. Like you do a TV show or a movie for like 2 to 6 months, 7, 8 months even, or like a year if you're really lucky. And then when it ends and you're not working 60 hours a week on a movie set where, at least in my job, it's like, oh, is the curtain hung right? Like even now seeing the lack of steaming I did on the curtain behind me is driving me nuts. If I saw that in a movie, I'd flip out. But like you make something as simple as how well the curtains are steamed for your role on your, film set, that when it's over, when it's done and it's on Netflix, it's being streamed, it's wherever it is in the world. Many people see it or enjoy it, but you're like, oh, I did that bit part and that was my day. That was my life. And, it's different here. Obviously he's a logger. The premise is, it's following the story of a man who works as an arborist, a logger. He goes
Mhm.
around, cutting trees. It's at like the start of the country almost, like it's like the railroads being built. And anyways, long story. When William H. Macy shows up, and he has those few really impactful lines, and he even says to our main character, which I feel like I've lived this world where the main character is talking about his dynamic to all the coworkers, where he's like, I don't see the same people too often, and when I do, some people rarely say anything. Some people talk too much, is what he's hinting at. And there's that scene where he works side by side with a guy for 2 months, didn't know his name. It's like I kind of get that. People come and go when it's like temp work or hard work. It'll be like a month into working with a guy on a show. I'm like, you drive a gray Honda Civic, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, cool. I've seen you in crew parking. Anyways, Brandon, it's like I've worked with a guy. So, for me personally, I really bought in with the premise and the opening of this movie, the first 5 minutes where it feels really bold. It's setting up what we're about to watch. I felt it was pretty enticing to like sit through. Um, but yeah, it got so derailed saying all this, but for the most part, William H. Macy, and his little screen time felt the most impactful because it was so accurate to mirroring my workplace where I work with all these guys, sometimes societal rejects on TV shows. It's not logging. Sometimes it's hard work. And when the work's over, you feel a little bit lost. You put so much time into being away from your family, like in my case, 60 hours a week, where to leave at 6, get home at 8, and then the rest of my life is what it is. So the way in for me was really obvious. And then with William H. Macy having his speech about the trees and what it does to your soul, cutting down these old trees. And when he says to our main character, like, basically, you're a good guy. Like, I can tell you've got a good aura about you. It's like, yeah, when you're surrounded by these essential like society rejects that go for the money, they're not always well rounded. They're kind of, grifters or like, what's the word? Like they travel, they don't live anywhere. They're not grounded. And our main character is a grounded man with a family and goals and hopes and ideas. Like, the buy-in was really easy. But again, I talked about the theater experience not being one, and I just found myself losing interest when the movie takes its time, and I felt like that's where I derailed. But that again, tangent and a half. But yeah, William
Well, I
H.
think
Macy and the coworkers are the best.
if you get the chance to see this in theaters, I think you'll find kind of the same connection to it that I ultimately did. And without it being like broken up too, I think is a significant impact on that because at the heart, what really got this for me, it was like what I likened it to is like my first heartbreak. And I remember like the feeling of when it was when you're so down, and like the concept is like, is like it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. But that's the kind of like I fought against that, and again, this was years and
You
years
hate
ago.
that type of message typically, which I'm really happy to hear you be like
But
that
I
bought
think
in.
functionally this was one of the best executions because it's so much more than that, and that really is kind of that's just one aspect of this movie that this is what you mentioned about like at the start of the country. It's like, well, technically it's not, but that's one of the beauties of the movie is that it feels like it's bringing the two worlds of America together where he's working a job where like feasibly if you said like for his purpose like this is a guy that just builds a log cabin in the middle of these fucking woods with his wife and they have a kid and he goes off to do logging and all you see are trees and they're building the railway. You could have been like, yeah, this was 200 years ago or something like that. Well, the reality is like, and what I thought this movie does so brilliantly is like that's the timeline matches up, but as you get to the end of the movie and they're in space, like we're on the precipice of landing on the moon without getting into the debate on that. I don't know if Brandon's a moon landing
A
denier or
new
something.
frontier. Nah, dude, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Kubrick did the moon landing.
but but
I'm kidding.
um but like to see that kind of like thing on display and that swing of life is really fascinating. And I think to me what really brought all this together was it's everyone wants to think that their life is special, that we're special, that our impact on the world is significant. And the reality is, with 7 or whatever billion of us on here, that's just not true for most people. And I think,
What do you mean, dude? My life's really special. I'm a,
well, but
I'm a
see, this
shining
is the
star, dude.
beauty. This is the beauty of the movie where this is a character that again like has a relatively simple life, goes through some very traumatic stuff and significant hardship, but like his desires in life and like it's all these kind of like go on to get along kind of energy that he brings. And there's a whole like sort of side plot about that and what that can kind of do to someone's psyche. But for me, what I found so kind of profound was this pursuit of like, what is this all for? What does this all mean? And again, I'm not crying while we're recording this. If you're on the
You're so
audio
choked
only
up.
version, I'm so choked up. It's definitely not the cold that I have, but I did get choked up at this moment because when he gets in that plane and he's flying and he's seeing the world in just like a whole new way. And again, people I've seen back and forth complaining about the narration, but I thought it was great. Um, and it was in that moment where where all of the hardships and all of these stressors, like he lost his wife and child in this forest fire and, constantly like was left alone. And the shots at the end, specifically of the house, where it looks like he died in his bed and the growth kind of just overtaking that and everything. Like, again, one of the most visually beautiful movies I'd seen all year. But just for that moment for him to say like that life just clicked together and the meaning of life is all of those experiences and it's not any one thing. Um, and how remarkable it is to exist and just again like for him to just work his whole life with no concept of technology and like again that narration where it says like he never made a phone call, Um, you know, and like he just there's all these things that happen that he just were never in his world. And he sees these TVs and he's like, where are they? And she goes, they're in outer space and like all this stuff. It's just one of those profound movies to me when you see this kind of laid out in such a beautiful way and carried by such a great performance. Um, the ending itself was crazy, but the bit with Carrie Condon for me, she was, the lady that he takes to this lookout point, and he
Yeah.
eventually goes back to visit her, and similar to Hamnet last week, there was a moment when they were talking in her little tower that just I just got swept by this, like, emotional wave kind of hit me, and I just started tearing up at, like, this simplistic beauty where we look for so many complicated things in life and aspire for so much more when it's like it's sometimes it's just like recognizing what's happened and what can happen and looking around a little bit. And I think it was just, again, it's not like a groundbreaking, unheard of concept or anything like that, but I haven't seen an execution like it that was this impactful on me in a long time. And yeah, I just overall like it just really swept me off my feet. And um I really, really, really hope I get the chance to see this in a theater, because I remember when people were saying when this came out at Sundance, I think last year, and then Netflix acquired it, like all the people that I saw that dropped reviews for it were like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like Netflix acquiring this is the worst possible news." And I think it's case in point. Like there was a lot of excitement when this movie came out, at least in the film circles that I follow. Um, and I really hope it gets a chance because there's some genuine awards worthy stuff in here, even from cinematography. And I do think the lead performance and William H. Macy as a supporting actor would definitely be worthwhile to see
As
on
a
an
weekly
Oscar
guest
ballot.
role. Uh,
His recurring role on the hit Netflix series Train Dreams.
yeah, I picture like an edit where it's like was like Cheers or whatever, like starring, and it has like the cast is like with guest star William H. Macy as the guy that gets hit with a Widowmaker branch 5 minutes after delivering some of the greatest scenes of the movie. Spoiler. But yeah, no, I say two things. One, if you call in sick to work this week, please, for the love of God, send them this episode. A, so we get the views, but B, how they can hear how sick you are. I love that thematically. Like if you were ripping into a movie that sucked and you're like, it was just bad writing, but, like I love that it matches how moved you are. The second thing is, yeah, I do love that through line. And I do, again, think it ties back to like that Oscar clickbait type thing where people talk about like, well, what makes it an Oscar, discussion? What makes it so impactful? I do think that theme or that messaging of like, almost like the resistance of a main character energy. Like we talk about people and, people that have main character energy where they think they're the center of the universe and they're just an undiagnosed narcissist or whatever. Again, relating it to the workplace, when you work in film and TV, so many people are colorful characters. People call it the island of misfit toys. And I get that vibe from the logging world that he's in. And I really found it, again, very poetic and beautiful. The way it kind of, like you said, he never took a phone call. I think I love the narration in this. Maybe I'm a simpleton, but I think narration in a movie is often the best or worst thing, and in this case, it's
Mhm.
in the best aspect. But, yeah, I don't know. I really loved it. I resonated with it. I just wish I saw it in a theater because I found myself, wanting to get to tears. Like I found myself being like, what a great movie as I, was living in my own apartment and, surrounded by the things I needed to do. But,
And broke it
yeah,
up into 2-hour-long episodes.
yeah, pretty much. Dude, Stranger Things just came out. I had to finish episode 3. But yeah, I think that's really sweet. Like the Oscar talk of like the themes and whatnot. It's like things are bigger than you, and that is what I think movies are meant to instill. The direct word that I associate with that, and everyone should, it's in the dictionary, is sublime. When you see a tsunami wave standing on a beach, you realize how small you are in the world, and that tsunami is going to crash into you regardless of how you feel or whatever. Um, it paints that blue collar guy like look very well. There's divorced dad energy in this movie, so I'm invested. Not divorced, but again, I go back to the IATSE route. Guys who'll start in departments like carpentry or rigging or set deck, whatever, as they get older and they leave their category that they put a lot of labor on their body, they usually end up in transport. And this guy does the same. He goes from this hardcore logger guy, loses his wife and daughter, much like a divorce. And then he ends up in transport doing like the shuttle driving for people with his wagon. And that gave me a big internal chuckle. And I was like, I got to remember that because, and similarly, he's just plagued by the loss of his family from working away and not being there for them when they needed him. The fever dream in the movie, like the way they shot it, again, like we keep saying it's shot really well. There's a lot of shutter speed tricks in this movie. They do something that people shy away from nowadays, where they take the shutter and they do it too low, where it's like choppy. That used to be like the cheap way for TV in like the 90s and 80s to do like dream sequences or like hallucinations because everything's wavy and weird. There's a lot of high shutter speed stuff I wasn't expecting, like when it's a very static shot of something happening or a conversation, it's high shutter. Think like Saving Private Ryan. So, uh, the big compliment for cinematography is it feels so purposeful. Like again, when you watch a ton of movies like we do, there's not a single scene in a movie that is sort of similar, like slice of life, finding human connection through story and memory. Was when we saw Rental Family, and it's like there's not a scene where they crank the shutter speed either direction. It's just a movie. Where here, I felt like there's a lot of the choice to make those moments stand out. Every framing in this movie feels like they're trying to make a beautiful movie, be it, a shot through the cabin door that's all dark where you see him in the door frame symmetrically lined up, be it through the tower or whatever, where, he
Mhm.
goes to meet that woman and they're in different quadrants of the screen. It's just like, uh, very intentional, and again, like watching a lot of movies, any Marvel movie, any whatever movie, movies in general, it's just like A to B coverage, conversation over the shoulder, wide shot, establishing shot. If you watch this, they taught us in film school. If you watch the first Iron Man, it is very technically to the letter as far as coverage. They start the movie wide shot of like drone shot of like Afghanistan highway, extreme wide shot drone, Humvees driving down the road, punch into a medium of the people in the cab, and that's over the shoulder dialogue, and this movie does not ever have moments like that. And those heartfelt conversation scenes are usually just static one shots or wider, and it's them conversing over a fire. And, yeah, it's a beautiful movie with execution that is like artful. Yeah, I recommend it to people, but I do, normally I'm the one that says I wish this was a streaming thing so I could catch it when I need to, and I feel bad that I caught it in that light, it's,
I'll create a
relatability was
list
high.
of movies that we need to watch when you're here, where we can tell everybody else to leave us alone and we can create our own cinema at home experience. Because I think
Shay's
if we watch this together, um, I think, like I said, or again, ideally in a theater, I would like to see. It's definitely one I think you would get a lot out of.
Oh, for sure. I definitely recognize this was a movie I should love, and ideally, like again, I'm blown away that you've five-starred it and loved it so much. I see why, like the pieces are there, but I definitely recognize atmosphere and timing. And again, when you go to the theater, you are religiously booking a time, like Sunday Mass. You are choosing to go to a place of worship where you let somebody talk while you're in silence, and you don't get that. Streaming. So yeah, yeah, I'm trying to think like just generally, yeah, I found my way in very easy. I thought it was beautiful. I didn't feel the impact. And I was kind of surprised when you're like, this movie moved me so much. Cause again, my method of watching it at home, just wasn't nearly as, enthralling, I guess. And, yeah, I'm glad you got so much out of it. And truthfully, I think a lot of people would, but I love the overall theme of just like, this movie's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of just people living their life, expressing who they are, without it just being ham-fisted. It's these little vignettes of people and times and places. And I feel like I live that all the time working with technicians in film and TV. When people talk about being in LA or Vancouver or working out east, or me going to the Arctic. I've been to William H. Macy on a film set where I'm talking about dressing a set in the Arctic and all the challenges of that, you know, and the loggers kind of do that for me in that sense where they're like, yeah, you ever go down to Missouri? And they're talking about the trees in Missouri for 5 minutes and you're like, yeah, I'm in. I love seeing just like natural characters in a time period. None of them have iPhone face, which we talked about. You know, it's like where you get the Kim Kardashian look, so it's hard to cast, you know, a beautiful actress in a time period because it's like, well, yeah, she's clearly had some work done, or men similarly that definitely have a hair transplant. They don't look like they have a rustic charm to them. And again, I think the main actor in this movie I was saying is like he's often kind of a henchman. He's never really front and center, but I think that's a role we're going to see filled by people like David Desmalkian, the guy from
Mhm.
Late Night with the Devil. He's a guy that's often a henchman, and like I'm glad we're seeing some of these actors that are like B-list, getting their own little star vehicles, leading men roles because I do think like we're kind of sick of movie stars. And I think culturally, there's like a big argument about the death of a movie star. Like, I think Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino, one of the big ones, said that Chris Evans is not a movie star, Captain America is. And we're in this post movie star era. Like, no one's buying tickets to go see The Rock lately, or whoever. It's not sold. Like, the actors still have a great, fee to be in the movie, but I think there's a yearning from the general audience to have great story and performance and escapism. And it's almost distracting when you get like, again, The Rock and the Smashing Machine, where you're just like, oh, it's the guy from Rampage, crying.
Skyscraper.
Skyscraper, dude, Skyscraper. And what was it? It was like Earthquake LA or something. It was like he had 3 or 4 movies all in 2017 when 2017 was one of the worst box office years, I'm pretty sure, before the pandemic. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. There's an actor fatigue. So I'm happy to see people who have been working steady getting the opportunity to do artful movies and have performances. I really hope this gets brought up in an Oscar discussion, even if it's not nominated. It's a very solid movie. I'm sure many people are going to watch it or put it on in the background and they're not going to like me. They're not going to like rave about it. They'll just be like, "Oh, that was so much better than oh my God." So many streaming movies, but um
Yeah, well, if anything too, like I give Netflix a lot of grief, but I realize this is a business and whatnot, but I think filmmakers need to make a real decision about if you sell your movie to Netflix. These are the kinds of things that will happen. Apple, there's other streamers that are more committed to the theatrical experience than Netflix. Um, so on one hand, it's like, yeah, this movie deserved better, but on the other hand, this is what they opted to do. So, and that's to their detriment. I think there could have been a lot of buzz and excitement about this movie. Not that it would have been like a breakthrough, giant box office smash hit or anything like that, but it definitely was connecting with a lot of people that were surprised by how good it was. Um, and you kind of cut yourself off at the legs there when you do it that way. So, I mean, in one hand, that's on you. But speaking of a lot of stars, Wake Up Dead Man.
yeah, Wake Up Dead Man. It's funny you say that. I looked up Wake Up Dead Man to get some good insights to this. Without getting into the spoilers right away, I was trying to look up the main actor, the guy who plays the priest. He is kind of the anchor of the movie. There's so many stars in this movie. The actual guy who is our main character is the 10th bill on Google. When Google generates the list of cast members, he's the 10th name, which is crazy. He's lesser known than the main, lot, but it's like Mila Kunis in this movie. She's in it as a cop. In my opinion, like not necessarily the most interesting character. But she's like the fourth person that comes up because it's Mila Kunis. Yeah, he's
Well,
buried
that's
on
actually
the
been an
casting list.
interesting thing with these 3 movies is that the sort of audience surrogates or the main characters in them are always almost, I would say, I think, the lesser known actors in the ensemble. Like when the first Knives Out came out, Ana de Armas was not Ana de Armas as we know her today. Um, who was it in the second one? I was just pausing to say, and I was
it,
just gonna say It
My girlfriend and
was
I had that exact exchange conversation driving home. I was like, "Yeah, Daniel Craig takes a bit of a back seat in this movie. I think like the movie is really carried by Josh O'Connor as the uh, priest lead character. I feel like in Glass Onion, the set like the main character that wasn't Daniel Craig was like I think like a very generic detective or somebody they had come to the island for the mystery. Like I honestly can't
Well, so
remember.
the main girl, I just couldn't remember her name, but it was Janelle Monet. She was like, she was kind of the one that they were like, again, she was our audience surrogate, but in a cast that included like Kate
Dave
Hudson, Edward
Bautista,
Norton, Batista, like she was a lesser known person by that metric. And I would say the same thing with Josh O'Connor here, at least on a mainstream level for sure. um Josh O'Connor's been in a ton of movies in the last couple years. Probably most known for Challengers, I think I would say, of
oh
his
yeah, yeah.
recent
I couldn't put my
run.
finger on it. He's one of those guys where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, he's in that movie. He was the
Yeah,
white
the
guy in
guy
that
from the
movie.
movie. But yeah, overall, I would say, um, there's a bit of shayflation going on with the ratings on this one. Because I was trying to think about conceptually how I felt. I love the first one. The first one to me is like a perfect movie. I think everything about the first Knives Out is amazing, infinitely rewatchable. I love, love, love that movie. The second one I liked, but I just felt it wasn't as strong on the mystery front. Just lacked a little bit. Specifically, there was a moment that's very obviously noticeable that really kind of derails the unveiling component of the mystery. Um, but this one I thought was my second favorite of the three. Again, like you, I got to see all of these in theaters. Thankfully, because these are such great crowd pleasing, like these are such just
Oh
fun
yeah.
movies.
Packed on a
And
Wednesday night while Stranger
yeah.
Things was streaming. Everybody was out. I was so shocked. I thought like I was at work and people had Hellfire Club, Stranger Things T-shirts. Like, you watch Stranger Things tonight? I was like, actually, I'm gonna go see Knives Out 3. Wake Up Dead Man.
Well, not to
Everyone's like,
call out
what?
any of your friends that said that may listen to the podcast, but the average Knives Out watcher is significantly cooler than the people that were watching Stranger Things season 5 on opening debut of its
Wednesday.
4 episode chunk of a final
Yeah,
season
yeah,
that's 20 years later than anyone cares for it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think for me this was a lot of fun. And when we get into the spoiler chunk, like please watch this movie, because if you know what happens, it's just a less fun experience. So it's always good to have that first experience where you don't know what's going on and you're making predictions along the way. And it was funny because as I was watching this, I was convinced of one prediction and I thought I had the whole thing figured out. But this one was so much more layered and complex. And I think he really took the hits from the last one where everyone was like, oh, the mystery was less compelling and it was so obvious, where literally every beat that I thought I knew, he kind of like, I would almost use a phrase like he overwrote it, but it was
Yeah.
to undermine the assumptions that people would make along the way. So yeah, no, I thought this was a hoot. Um, Visually a lot of fun. I thought the set, like the location or whatever they were on,
Yeah.
was really cool and interesting. And I loved, specifically, there was things I noticed, like it becomes more prominent at the very end, but I think there was maybe 3 or 4 scenes in the movie where the lighting changes during a scene.
In the
And
church, yeah.
I
Practical lighting
loved that
changes.
just from like
Thematic.
windows and stuff. And yeah, like it
Yeah.
comes back around in a way that I thought was really fun too. But just visually, it just leaned into the gothic kind of,
Yeah.
like vibe of it a little bit more. And this was a lot of fun. And to me, I put it, this is a really like, I didn't quite get to the love level of enjoyment. Because also I would say this is a bit more serious, like as serious as these movies kind of get, where like
There's like real
the
stakes here. Yeah, it's not as
right, and
isolated
the
as the other
second
two.
one was, like, lampooning these, like, rich elites, and the first one
Yeah.
even was, like, lampooning this rich family, so this one was more grounded.
Yeah, you actually care what happens to the main character, which again, like we were talking about the casting and the main character of the second movie, And like it's not like I'm going to leave this movie praising Josh O'Connell like in every or O'Connor. I was going to say I won't remember his name, but I think as far as the movie goes individually, I will always kind of remember this one as being a lot more character based for the main guy. Because the main lady in the second movie, I genuinely don't even remember her at all. Like again, the audience surrogate. Um, and the first movie, I only remember Ana de Armas because like Ana de Armas. And Chris Evans. Anyways, but the point is, star-studded cast, and I really feel like the takeaway on the spoiler half is that it's a lot more character focused, and I found it more enjoyable for that. Like I felt there was a real conviction to our characters, main characters, belief and faith and all that. Like it never falters. Like it does falter thematically, but I mean like he always is grounded. He doesn't just 180 do like a F the rich, like I'm gonna make a bit. Like he was very in his lane, and he's a compelling character, which I think the other two movies lack. At least the second one lacked the most. A lot of the lampooning from the second movie, again, like the eat the rich thing that I was starting to get, I am kind of sick of. Like, not like I'm a capitalistic like shill, but you watch The Menu and Glass Onion in the same year, and you're like, I get it. You watch Severance, you're like, I get it. And then eventually you get to, or sorry, not Severance, Succession. You just get to a point where like, how often is Hollywood the rich going to be like, don't the rich suck? So I'm really glad that we got this movie that was a lot more character focused. Yeah, I would say similar to you, I was trying to predict it like the whole time. That's the fun of a mystery like this. So you definitely don't want to stick around with the spoiler half. I actually, funny enough, guessed like the whodunnit. Like I guessed it like 30 minutes or less in. And then the movie is so entertaining and enjoyable. I forgot I made that prediction. And then when the end wraps up the way it does, I was like, oh, I said that like legitimately 20, 30 minutes in. I was like, I bet that's the person that does all the things. Uh, so it's not a predictable movie. I know that was like a bit of a shade toss, but I genuinely found it so engaging and endearing. Um, on our scale, I love it. Like again, it's above a like. I think I hold reverence for all these movies. And Rian Johnson, we got to see in the Austin Film Festival. He spoke for a crowd of us and talked about his writing experiences. And I find his stuff always to be a slightly higher bar than average. And he's very talented. It's a quick tangent. The first movie I saw twice in theaters. Once because my buddy wanted to see it and I didn't care. I was like, oh, murder mystery. Like, I don't know. Then the second time I was the buddy that was like, you guys got to see this movie. So I watched it a second time. It's really great. And that was my last theater experience before the global pandemic. And then after that, the next movie I saw in theaters was X-Men: The New Mutants, which was terrible. And I distinctly remember this feeling or this total flavor of like bad taste in my mouth being like, theaters used to be awesome. Knives Out was awesome. And now movies are Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. I saw wearing a mask with no theater concessions, and New Mutants, which I just felt like was so bad. And I was like, movies are dead. And then The
Well,
Matrix 4. So like I had terrible movies after the pandemic, an amazing one, which was Knives Out. So when Glass Onion came out and I got to see it in theaters, I got to see it again on streaming with all my friends at the holidays. This is a similar thing where it's like I got to see it opening night, really enjoyed it, felt like it was a nearly perfect movie for what you're expecting. And then I think the whole trilogy is great. Last thing before we get into the movie, I would compare this to was it Hercule Poirot? A very similar art, like Daniel Craig's character. He's this detective who's got this southern drawl. It's really funny. I originally didn't like it in the first movie. I was like, oh, he's the Kentucky Fried accent's not great. But he's a likable character, and he grows on you. But comparing that to say like Death on the Nile or Death on the Orient Express, and then this movie, the third movie, comparing that directly to was it like a Death in Venice or something like that? The third movie of the Hercule Poirot murder
I
mystery
don't even know what
movies.
the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, if you look it up, it's Kenneth Branagh plays Hercule Poirot. I can't say it on the pod. But yeah, The Haunting in Venice is the third movie of that kind of loosely connected trilogy of murder mystery whodunits. And that movie, similarly, it's about a ghost, like a ghost kills somebody during a seance. and he happens to be there in Venice when this happens, and he has to figure out who did it. And if he can't figure it out, it's an actual ghost. So the stakes for him are like, if I don't solve this mystery, there is an afterlife, there are ghosts. And he's a firm non-believer, non-religious, similar to our, Daniel Craig. But that movie honestly was mid to sucks. And the way they wrap it up, mid to sucks. The way they tie the messaging in, mid to sucks. But with this movie playing with faith and belief and all that, I genuinely was at a point in this movie, and we'll get to I think we'll segue into spoilers here. So tune out if you don't have it spoiled. But the way this movie concludes, at least in that middle part of the third act, I genuinely was expecting Daniel Craig to not solve the mystery and let it be an audience discussion, to be like the final chapter of 3 movies where the world famous detective just bows out. He doesn't, but I really was almost expecting the theme, the message that it
Well, he
explains to the
kind of
audience.
does.
Kind of does. He does it to the characters in the movie and then gives the
Yeah.
audience the satisfaction. I thought they were going to deny the audience satisfaction. And my girlfriend and I argued about this, where I would have been like, bravo, what a bold choice. My girlfriend was like, no. I came for the mystery. You fucking explain the mystery at the end. That's the whole point. So, yeah, I feel like I rambled on there, but I thoroughly liked it. And I like everything it does. Briefly, I would say when you mentioned the location and the scenery, it's like a well decorated movie.
Hmm.
I really felt, especially at the church in the small town, it really felt like Men, Alex Garland's Men.
Mm.
Like the courtyard they have those conversations in, the 2 priests, pastors, and the church itself. I almost had these flashbacks on the woods that are. I was like, is this the same location? And it's far better than Men. And I was on a big Alex Garland hate train for a while because of Men, not because of Men, but like 4 movies in a row. But yeah, I definitely liked a lot of those choices.
Well,
Spoiler
the one
talk.
thing that Knives Out doesn't have that the movies that you were talking about do is The Death of the Nile has one of the most infamous line reads of all time
Oh
from
yeah,
Gal Gadot, where she's like, "And enough champagne to fill the Nile."
the
And it's
Nile.
like
Yeah,
notoriously like one of the shittiest line readings ever. I love seeing that. Every time I see it pop up on my feed, I always watch it and get a good
I
chuckle.
I saw this meme that was Gal Gadot core, and it was all of her worst line readings, and there's like 14 of them, and it would just play the clip and go at the end of it,
Yeah,
and that was the big one.
yeah,
We
no,
we have to
she's
save the
not great.
princess, like just so bad,
Yeah,
dude.
she's not great. Luckily, Rian Johnson's better at casting than whoever did those other movies. But yeah. So on the spoiler side, digging into this one, what, and I mean, like honestly, it's kind of obvious partially in the title, but again, obvious, and then they undercut it that it didn't actually happen. Was that I was convinced that he wasn't dead. I was like, oh, he definitely, like, this is all a fake setup and whatever else. But like, boy, did I not even scratch the surface of that, because he is dead. And like, this is what I liked about this one, where it wasn't just like a calling it a whodunit is almost, it's like a who done what, in the
Yeah,
sense that like it's so much more layered and complex than that. And I thought that was a brilliant thing to do at the third entry, where it's like, people know, like there's a bit of tropes. Like you even said the big reveal where Benoit Blanc gets to unveil the mystery. And like, I love that every time he's done it in the last 2 movies. And so for that one and this one to get kind of stopped. And like, I remember being like, what's going on? Like, and it's just how it and why, like, I thought it was a kind of fun way. For him to like have that bit and undercut it a little bit, and then you get Glenn Close to come in and have a really sweet moment to shine. But
it,
so you said you predicted this 30 minutes in. What did you guess 30 minutes in?
well, the old woman is clearly the most fanatical. They show her intro, they show her say stuff to the charlatan lady. She's like, "May God forgive you," and she goes ape. I'm like, that's a fake memory. And like, this movie, I would say, is sort of like the Scream franchise, where it's almost self-aware that it has these tropes. Like in Glass Onion, it's very quickly it gets to like we all had a motive to murder the guy. And this movie, they almost say it and then they just breeze right through it. They're like, you all had a motive. They explain why. And then you never really honestly suspect maybe two or three of them. It's just kind of like, probably not them. It's too obvious or too like, and they don't waste your time by like fleshing that out. They go straight to maybe the top two or three suspects. Like the writer character is funny. That's like the most carryover you get from
Hmm.
Glass Onion as far as like the current political climate or the political voice. That and Josh Brolin, being a religious guy using hate to fearmonger his crowd. That's the closest like contemporary commentary you get, and it doesn't ham on it
Well,
as
the
much as say,
politician, the
oh
Cy, I
yeah,
think is
yeah,
his
yeah.
name, where he's like, I hit all the issues. Like that scene killed me because he
The
was like,
whole
oh,
theater.
he really hit all the issues. He hit every bit. The
He
climate
whenever he
thing,
said
the pronouns thing, like he just listed
the
them all
abortion
off.
thing, the
Yeah.
migration thing, the every time he said the thing, audience laughed, and by the fifth or
Yeah.
sixth thing, the laugh got louder, and it was like funny to see the crowd escalate when he's like lampooning all the political climate issues. Yeah, so like yeah, there's some DNA that shares with the others as far as like being able to lampoon current social climates. But yeah, I definitely. So when I said I predicted it, though, spoilery, it's the old woman, the one that is set up to be the most devout. And Daniel Craig explains it like, oh, I didn't want to ruin what she had going, and I saw it coming immediately, and then I forgot all about it because it goes so many different routes. And there's even a point
Yeah.
where like the audience is again, it's part of the fun and it's aware that it does this, but it's very manipulative to make you think it's other things, like with false flashbacks, or like again, she says, like,
Yeah.
I hope God forgives you. And then instead she says something like, you'll never have it. And then
I know
like, it
where
makes more
you'll
sense.
never
I know where
find.
it is and you'll never find. Yeah. So, like there's a few things there, I
Well,
guess.
I just wanted to hone in on that because I think it's funny where you said like, 30 minutes in, you nailed the like the person, but what they
The
did,
motive. Yeah.
you don't know, like, you don't know, and be like, no
Yeah.
one can, and I think that's kinda like where I was just like, well, he's faking it, and, like, that's such a simplistic, like, A,
Yeah.
he wasn't, and B, like, that's not even the point, and that's what
Well,
I
cause
think is really funny of that self-awareness that you were
you're so
talking about.
primed from Glass Onion and the other works and just murder mysteries in general. That you're like, oh, it's Josh Brolin. Like he's got all the motive to do this to elevate him. Like you like it's the most like low IQ person who thinks they're above it all is like
Yeah.
it's clearly Josh Brolin. He wants to be resurrected and become like the most famous guy.
Well, and even the
Uh
title, right? Like,
Wait,
wait.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like it's funny because you can easily predict a lot of moments in it. Like why is he going into the tomb? And as soon as they say like the tomb will open easily from the inside, but it needs construction material from the outside to open it up, like you immediately are kind of guessing like, well, obviously there's a massive treasure in there, and the fun is figuring out what that treasure was. Like when he says it's like Eve's apple or whatever, and it's a gem that's worth a
Yeah.
lot of money, So like the experience is what the mystery is. It's definitely something that even now, if you're a jaded moviegoer, you're just listening to spoil it. It's like it's really hard to spoil the connective tissue and watching people uncover
Yeah.
it. And yeah, there's a lot of like again, like not to be corny, but like yeah, the pastor talking to the construction rental company lady in a
Yeah.
worse movie would be that Abigail scene where it's like a heartfelt moment on the phone to remind you he's a good guy, but it's so core to the character who has
Yeah.
always said he's just a priest. And when you see him climbing that hill and these light transitions, like you said, to line this up of like I want to solve the mystery more than I want to be a good pastor, a good priest, a good man
Yeah.
of faith. And he dials it back in, and like it's a very thoughtful movie, which I didn't expect from this because I think Glass Onion is the opposite, where it's a lot more cynical and fun. This one's very fun still, but the cynicism is ironed out to be this more, yeah, I guess like lighthearted version, but it still cuts. Like it's
Yeah.
not toothless. It still has a lot, like you said, the politics bit where he's like, I tried all these issues to get relevance, and yeah, it does play with the audience a lot. And I did say it feels manipulative at times where they falsify a flashback or the framing when he's writing the letter. It does that movie thing where it starts you in the end and you work your way back. In this case, it's the middle of the movie where he's writing the letter. You think he's writing the letter to get Daniel Craig to come investigate. So all the things have transpired, but it's actually
Yeah.
like, it's good. But then, as soon as Daniel Craig reads that letter in real time of the movie, he's like, "So why'd you do it?" And the whole audience is like, "Oh, he actually did it." Like I even heard later go, "It was him," but it's like he's being, tongue in cheek to be like, "Why did you do a related thing to the mystery, not the actual murder?" So
Well, that's the
yeah.
thing that I wanna give Rian Johnson a lot of credit for too, is that it can be really easy to get too up your own ass in these, and, my friend Sam, who I tricked into seeing this movie, kind of, by the way, he hates Rian Johnson because he hates The Last Jedi. He thinks it
Ah,
was, like, the worst Star Wars movie, and to the point where I bought him a ticket to go see Glass Onion, and he didn't come. He wouldn't go
wow.
see it, and so since then, Sam's become the friend that comes to see movies with me, but he doesn't know what movies we're going to see. So I
Right.
brought him into this sold out crowd and we got our seats. And then he had no idea what movie we were sitting down to watch until the Netflix. And then it all started. And so
Directed by
he sat
Rian
through it.
Johnson. He's like, "God damn it, Shay."
Well, which I love because that didn't even happen until the very end. So you just
Yeah.
see up the title, right? So, but he said he clocked it once the Netflix. He was like, "Wait a minute," and then yeah, it all kind of came through. But even he had to admit that it was, he was being conciliatory a little. But it would be really easy to overthink this, be too much, and, like, I think it does just the right amount of, like I said, overwriting where he's, like he knows he's anticipating where we will go as an audience and doing little things to kind of undermine and undercut that. Like you said, I was assuming he's writing this letter at the beginning as a way to get Benoit Blanc here, but then Benoit Blanc kinda shows up midway through this, like, we're still in the letter part, and then when he, like, frames that as, like, "Well, you did something," and, like, I loved all of that because I was like, "Whoa, whoa," like, it was a roller coaster ride of just, like, going through all of the beats, but it doesn't feel like it somehow doesn't manage to feel too convoluted or that there was too much going on. And I just love how all these little isolated moments, like even when he walks in on the meeting and you as the audience, when that happens, thinks he's just bitching at them about the fact they did this prayer meeting or whatever. And that's not even close to what was the problem, right? And what was going on in that scene. And so I just loved everything, like as a movie, like all of these are just great. Like, I feel like it's impossible not to have fun with them, and, it's a testament to Rian Johnson and, his writing that these are all also good.
I would say I want to hit you with like the biggest allegorical curveball here. So I already said it feels like Scream, where as it goes on, the fun is that it's aware of how it's manipulated you in the past. So I'm already comparing it to Scream, and now I'm going to say it's very Hitchcockian in the way that the suspense is delivered, because Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig's going to come in and solve the mystery, but there's that really fun scene where he walks in on the pastor who's grieving and mourning and trying to figure out what to do, and the whole audience knows like, oh, there's the guy, and they have that beat where they exchange ideology, and it's like it's a good scene. Like
Mhm.
I love that, and I would say if there's gonna be an Oscar time release of a very church pope priest movie, I would much rather watch this movie 3 times than revisit, say, Conclave. Conclave I found boring, but the point is, so Conclave, Scream, and let's throw Hitchcock, and let's throw in the thing people complain about or joke about with like the Saw franchise is at the end of the movie they always do these flashbacks to explain what happened, and it feels so shoehorned in 90% of the time. And this movie, you're begging for it. Like I said, my girlfriend was like, if they didn't explain the mystery and that was like the real twist of this movie, she would have been pissed, when I would have been like, bravo, what a great cinematic subversion of expectations. So yeah, I felt like this movie just it landed really well, and based on the audience of a sold out theater on a Wednesday during the release of Stranger Things, the whole thing landed for the audience. Like nobody was really on their phone. Everybody was there to be entertained. They're such great theater movies, and it does beckon the question again of like, Netflix should really give minimum a limited theatrical release to a lot of their big like releases, because I don't see it hurting. And then this movie was a limited release, but it should have been a little bit wider, I feel, because like it is such a good theater experience. Like hearing people gasp and laugh and all that, like it's unreplaceable. And again, like I said earlier, it's a religious experience to segment the time to go to be entertained and escape. Yeah, definitely worth seeing in theaters. I should have shoehorned this in before the spoiler half, but yeah, please go see it. Please see it in the theater. And honestly, even I'm not even that mad if you're gonna watch this on the holidays when it hits streaming. Get people together. Like it's a fun
Yeah, I
movie
was
to
gonna
watch with the
say,
crowd.
watch it with people. Like that's
Yeah.
the single biggest heartbreak for me for these movies is if you watch any of these by yourself, it's just infinitely not as fun. It's
No.
just not. And it's so much like because even if you're at home, you can be like, oh, what's the
Oh, I bet
oh
they
like
did
you
it.
can yeah, you can have
Yeah.
like little bits where it's just the two of you or a small group of you and it's not as bad. But yeah, like that's the thing for me is like more than anything, it's criminal that these movies, like, if you just watch this at home, we do not have the same experience, and I felt like that for Glass Onion. I was like, I got to see that same thing, sold out crowd, opening night, and I was like, if you watch this at home by yourself, like, we did not watch the same movie, we did not have the same experience, and that sucks, and if I can, like, make my Netflix hate more apparent, I think, like, the biggest problem is that they see theaters as competition, and that sucks, like, because I really don't think that's the case. I much prefer, like, Apple's approach to this, where they like, to me, it's like, make good movies, put them in theatrical windows, make some money back, and if you wanna watch these good movies again, then sign up for our streaming service. That to me is the winning combination here in the streaming wars. I think Netflix is frankly arrogant, to think that they can like, yes, they've done damage to the theatrical, distribution, but, like, it's still something people are going for, and you see movies like this year, like Sinners, that aren't IP, that are connecting and still cutting through. Like there's people are still drawn to that. And to contrast that too quickly, this is a slight side tangent, but ahead of this movie played the trailer for what is it, Mandalorian and Grogu. And that shit, and I'm not even like I'm a hater, whatever, yes. It looks like a made for fucking streaming TV show commercial like trailer playing in front of like I could not get over how not a movie that looks like. It just doesn't look it. It doesn't feel it. And I'm like, okay, if that's what your approach is, like slop for slop's sake, people waste time where the characters have to tell you what's happening because you're not paying attention. That's fine. There's a reason that exists, but that is not the same thing as theatrical cinema. And I hate like like again, even the Duffer Brothers. I'm not a big Duffer Brothers guy. I think Stranger Things should have been a single season and it was peak. Um, but they fought Netflix about this. They left Netflix because they aren't getting theatrical pushes. So I really, really hope this pushback continues. I hope Oscars modify rules that like allow indies obviously to still compete that can't get theatrical distribution because of the nature of the fact they're indies, but like screw Netflix. I don't care if you do things specifically to target streamers that have all this money. They have no excuse. You have to make movies theatrical. Um, or it's just not the same. And again, I'm so glad this is the last Knives Out movie at Netflix. They're done now after this. And so he can keep making more. They don't own the IP. And he can make them with a studio that will put them in a movie theater because the fact that these are selling out like for
On a
this week, like
Wednesday.
people are flooding to them.
Yeah.
There is money to be made with this franchise theatrically and still, and the quality is as good as it is. I really hope if he does make a fourth one that it absolutely bops and I'm going to be there day one to support it because they deserve it. So
Even if Knives Out 4 is called Knives In, and it's like a Scream almost parody where it's like they're making a movie about Daniel Craig in the movie, I would still go and flock to it and praise it. So,
I
amen to what
trust
you said.
Ryan.
I trust Ryan. That's the t-shirt, like vote for Pedro. I trust Ryan. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. That's literally you're the one losing your voice, but I'm speechless. That is exactly how I felt. And especially with these two movies, both Netflix movies, both good in their own way. The theater only would have helped both of them, you know, and at least Knives Out, I feel confident like people will enjoy it watching it at home. But that's no excuse to not go see it, especially like I said, the audience reaction and the people in the crowd. Just yeah, they were there for the love of the game. They're there
Yeah.
for a escapist, fun whodunit. And yeah, it's one of the best in the game. Again, comparing it to the Death and the Nile franchise series with Hercule Poirot, I just yeah, I much rather watch these movies. So on that note, yeah, my theater experience was nearly perfect. Very little to complain about, but I have a feeling that you have probably had a
Well,
worse experience.
I have to give Ty a lot of credit on this one. My younger brother, I give him grief as a older brother must do for a younger brother to keep him humble and in line and all those kinds of things. But when the lights go out, we get the feature presentation thing on there pops up and it's like the producing credits and all of that, right? This dude, I couldn't tell what he was doing. It looked like he was on Amazon or something and he was swiping back and forth, but like max brightness, phone like way up, like absurd. And Ty, there was a couple other people that were doing like more discreet checks that I could see. But again, we're not even in the movie. The title hasn't happened yet, but it's just the producing credits. And Ty loudly, again, sold out theater. We're smack dab in the middle. Ty just goes, "Hey, bud, put your fucking phone away." Everyone, I saw all the lights just dip out. That dude put his phone away. We had no issues. So I think last week you talked about it pretending to be a Cineplex employee to get people to be quiet. I like that idea, but also if you just yell out of the beginning, it sets the tone for the movie. And in a full out theater, we had like zero issues after that. So kudos to Ty, set the tone out of the gate, tell people to put their phones away, and hopefully you won't lose your voice having to yell at other people.